Prussia Pond. Yes, I do. This is SB 208, item number 9 on our calendars. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. SB 208 will help disadvantaged communities and nonprofit organizations who apply for Integrated Regional Water Management, or otherwise known as IRWIM grants, secure funding for sustainable water projects. I introduced this bill in response to the current reimbursement process that has proved to be inequitable for smaller nonprofits and disadvantaged communities. Currently, when a regional water management group is approved for an IRWIM grant, they pre-finance the water plan, which they are later reimbursed for by the administering agency. This reimbursement system works for water groups with larger budgets and economic capital. For the smaller nonprofits and disadvantaged communities in our state, unfortunately, the system is inequitable. Furthermore, the state reimbursement process for administering grants awards under the IRWIM program have been less than timely for grant awardees. Whenever the processing for an IRWIM project is delayed, it is sometimes the case, the delay disenfranchises the group that can least afford it. On a larger scale, delays in reimbursement, repayments, burdens, and threatens the successful participation of smaller nonprofits and disadvantaged communities in the IRWIM process. This is not, I don't believe this was the intended purpose of Proposition 1, which is last year's water bond which set aside integrated regional water grants so that all groups or communities that have a viable approved water plan can benefit from Prop 1 funding. California has a large need for sustainable water projects, and we have communities that have innovative ideas to address this specific need. Our state's future and sustainability of water resources depend on innovative water initiatives, and the health of our disadvantaged communities depend on opportunities such as the IRWIM grant programs for improved water quality statewide. SB 208 will help address this issue. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in support of SB 208.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Glenn Farrell with the San Diego County Water Authority. Senator Lara has done a fantastic job of really kind of outlining the framework and the need for the bill. So I would just say from San Diego County perspective and what we've learned on a statewide basis is that these integrated regional water management programs are more meaningful and have more credibility if all the partners are at the table, not just the large water agencies, not just the cities, but the smallest participants, the nonprofit organizations and the disadvantaged communities. SB 208, the reason we're supportive of that bill is because it'll help address a roadblock, a cash flow roadblock that those smallest participants have. It'll keep them at the table and make these programs more meaningful and credible in the community, and so we're strongly in support of the measure.
Next.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Pablo Garza with the Nature Conservancy, also here in support, and thank the Senator for bringing this measure forward. I think it will help get projects done in areas where they are most needed. So, thank you.
Good afternoon, Marlene Dumaine with the East Bay Municipal Utility District, and our board took a vote yesterday evening in full support of this measure.
Hi.
Phoebe Seaton, Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, also on behalf of Community Water Center, Clean Water Action, and RCAC in support of this bill.
Good afternoon, Kiara Ross on behalf of the City of Pasadena in support of this bill. Thank you.
Sir.
Bob Reeb with Reeb Government Relations on behalf of Desert Water Agency and for George Dunn, who had to leave Coachella Valley Water District, also in support.
Mr. Chair, members, Mark Fenstermaker on behalf of the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts. We're actually in a support if amended position. Very much appreciate the author's intent with this bill. We are working with committee staff and with the author's office on trying to craft a good language to make sure that we don't get away from the intent of the bill to help disadvantaged communities, but we do see a role for the RCDs in the bill, and we'll be working on that going forward. Thank you.
Senator Lara, on page 5 of the analysis, I guess from when you appeared before the Natural Resources and Water Committee, they indicated that the process may be more streamlined, that currently the regional board has 90 days, then DWR has 60 days, so it looks like it's a 5-month period for funding. You have any thoughts on that, since they suggested it and now it's in front of us?
Right. You know, we did ask that question, and it seems that it's kind of twofold. It's when the actual agency or the nonprofit actually applies, which, you know, we encourage them to apply earlier so that the process kicks in. But, I mean, I don't know if you want to.
I mean, I know you have them at the table, and that's
Correct.
the first step, but it
Correct.
was brought here, and I don't know what's happened in the interim.
No, and on behalf of the author of the bill, I mean, I would just say, you know, that we're in conversations with the Department of Water Resources, you know, and the bill provides them a 60-day window from receiving the invoice to payment. You know, we're not sure that there's a lot of, you know, time wiggle room there. It's in the 90 days for the Regional Water Management Group. It just says within 90 days, so it could be within 1 day, 2 days. I mean, it just really is a function of how fast these regional water management groups are able to process. You know, and we're obviously, it would entertain streamlining. I mean, that's the whole goal of the bill. And so anything that would improve that would obviously be supportive of.
I'd like to recognize my chief consultant, Ms. Wagner, on that issue of streamlining. Ms. Wagner?
So we have had ongoing conversations with the Department of Water Resources, who have recently, in the last 12 months, implemented a series of what they think are streamlining measures to their process of the review of these applications. And they believe that over the last 12 months that they've made marked improvements. They said in the first quarter of last year, they were able to get about $4 million out the door versus the third or fourth quarter where they were able to get $12 million out the door. So they would ask that perhaps that we, rather than statutorily address these concerns at this time, we look at how some of the measures that they've implemented work, and then if further streamlining measures need to be integrated, that could be either addressed later this year in Senator Lara's legislation or in future legislation.
We're definitely open to having that further conversation.
Thank you
Absolutely.
for that understanding. Let's hear from opposition to the bill. Is there any opposition to SB 208? Seeing none, let's return it to the committee. Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, in the analysis, there was reference to the Committee on Natural Resources on the issue of accountability, that if we're putting money up front, is there a possibility that non-eligible expenses could get paid, and that it urged you to consider ways to work with the Department of Water Resources?
Right, we're actually working with them, and we're in discussion about how we can better improve accountability. So those are ongoing discussions that we're having as the bill moves forward. Absolutely, that's something that's very paramount to what we're trying to do and ensuring that we.
You haven't found that thing yet?
Yeah, we're still working on it.
All right.
Nobody gets on.
Thank you.
And I move the bill.
There is a motion to approve. You have a question, Senator Gaines?
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on Ms. Wagner's comments in terms of the process and getting money distributed more quickly. And then this question of the nonprofit aspect, because I have a concern about money flowing to a nonprofit before work is actually done on a project. Because typically, aren't these paid after work is done? Isn't there a reimbursement?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, Senator. Right now, it's on a reimbursable basis, and really, that's the whole
foundation of the bill, is that they're not getting paid on time, and they can't become participants. You know, they're disenfranchised from the process when they can't carry that kind of cash flow loss for up to a year at a time.
Okay, and so it sounds like there's going to be a conversation in terms of how to speed up that funding process? Correct. Okay, great. So
There's ongoing conversations about that. There's, DWR's already, it seems to have addressed some of the issues, but as the bill moves forward, if there's further clarification that needs to do, we can do that in this bill.
Good. I think I'll lay off for now, and we'll have another opportunity to vote on it on the floor. And, that sounds like a great solution. Thank you.
Senator Bates.
Just a question, nonprofits, having once been in social services a lot, is there a narrow definition of what nonprofits would be eligible to be project proponents? Because that's, just saying nonprofits, kind of broad.
It's the nonprofit definition is what the definition is within the water bond. And so in the bill, the last, on page 3, line 24, it says nonprofit organization has the same meaning as defined as the subdivision, which is the water bond. And I don't have that exact, do we have that?
The water bond?
The definition of,
That's okay, Senator Schlar, knowing
well-
that is defined and it's
Oh,
narrow.
absolutely.
But I think I'll lay off. I think it's a great approach, but I'd like to see what you work out going forward. when we
Thank
get
you,
to the
Senator
floor.
Bates.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Seeing no other questions, Senator Lara, will you please close?
I respectfully ask for a vote.
All right. Matt, Assistant, please call the roll.
Item 9, SB 208 by Senator Lara. The motion is due pass and referred to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wykowski?
Aye.
Wykowski, aye. Gaines? Bates? Hill? Jackson?
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Pavley? 3-0.
That matter has 3 votes. We'll keep it on call for the absent members to vote. Thank you for your
Dziękuję.
time. Nie ma za co. Committee, now we'll turn our attention to item number 13, SB 489, regarding the photovoltaic cells and the disposal of them by Senator Monning. Good afternoon, Senator Monning.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members.
And Senator, before you start, I was remiss. Item number 16 by Senator Cannella will now be a 2-year bill, so we won't be moving forward with that. I did not announce that earlier this morning. Go ahead,
Well,
Senator.
I know you've had a long morning. Good afternoon, and I'm proud to present Senate Bill 489, which authorizes the Department of Toxic Substances Control to designate solar photovoltaic modules classified as hazardous to be designated as universal waste for purposes of its regulation and proper waste management. Currently, DTSC lacks this state authorization, and upon approval by the U.S. EPA, DTSC does intend to introduce its regulations. PV modules, commonly referred to as solar panels, have varying useful lives, with some estimated to be 25 to 40 years. As part of California's effort to promote and invest in solar, it is critical to consider its inevitable waste stream by making it easier for end users to properly dispose and manage the waste, which can ultimately maximize the likelihood of take-back and recycling programs. A universal waste designation provides flexibility to develop more effective and cost-efficient methods of handling PV modules. Specifically, there may be ambiguity for the end user on whether the module meets the state's hazardous waste laws. Universal waste designation relieves that burden and allows the waste to be streamlined in existing systems for proper management. Fortunately, most of the components of a PV module today are recyclable, and some of the material has inherent value to recover, especially rare earth metals. Analysis from the National Photovoltaics Environmental Research Center concludes that PV module recycling is technologically and economically feasible. While some PV module companies provide take-back and recycling services, there is no comprehensive industry standard or public system in place to deal with all PV modules. Absent this, it is critical to begin planning now so that the waste is not sent to landfills. SB 489 has been informed by working groups consisting of the solar industry and other stakeholders who all share the goal that PV modules should be managed in a sustainable and responsible manner. Now removed from the bill, a proposed landfill ban for PV module did not have consensus within the group, but should discussions result in a compromise, I will consider returning it to the bill and would be willing to bring this bill back to this committee for its consideration. We have no opposition on file, and here to testify in support is Mark Murray from Californians Against Waste. With the permission of the chair, or
Please.
Mr. Vice Chair, thank you.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your witnesses.
Thank you. Mark Murray with the environmental group Californians Against Waste. Really appreciate the leadership of Senator Monning on this issue. We want everyone to have their solar panels and feel good about those solar panels, and we want those solar panels to last a good long time. That said, some of the solar panels do have elements of them that in California would require them to be treated as a hazardous waste. We have a model that we had in place that went in place a decade ago for dealing with electronics waste, which also had hazardous components. Creating this universal waste pathway is
is basically the federal government's way of saying, as long as you're handling that for the purposes of recycling, you're managing it properly for the purposes of recycling, you don't have to do the same kind of manifesting that you would do on a hazardous waste. And this way, not everyone that's handling it, touching it, then has to be a hazardous waste handler. It's a way of facilitating and growing a recycling industry for these materials. And it's something that, again, worked in the CRT and electronics waste world, and we're happy to support extending it to this new world of solar panels. Urge an aye vote.
Great, thank you. Next witness.
Margaret Gladstein on behalf of Solar City. I first want to thank the author and his staff for working closely with us for over the course of the last year. They've been diligent in getting feedback from the industry. We currently do recycle dysfunctional panels, and we appreciate the author bringing this bill forward to address the issue going forward.
Great, thank you. Next witness.
Chairman, members, Delaney Hunter on behalf of First Solar, proud solar developer here in California and across the world, including in Senator Manning's district. We are in strong support of the bill. We have been working with Senator Manning and the stakeholder group for 2 years now on this issue. We recycle about 98% of the materials within each of our modules. We have done so since the very beginning of our company. We do that for broken panels, end-of-life panels, etc. We think this is a great first step. We would, of course, be supportive of a broader bill, and we'll continue to work with the groups in hopes that we could probably do that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, Will Gonzalez on behalf of the California Solar Energy Industry Association in strong support. CalCEA represents the smallest mom and pop installers all the way to the largest installers in the state, and across the board we're in strong support of the bill and thinks it's a great initial first step. Thank you.
Olivia Regalia for Sierra Club California in support.
Opposition to SB 489. Anyone here would like to testify in opposition to Mr. Manning's or Senator Manning's bill? Seeing none, we'll return the matter to the committee. Are there questions of the author?
No question, just for thoughtful bill. These systems often have lifetimes of 20, 30 years. We're coming up on that, and we should be prepared. Very important issue, so I move the bill.
All right, there's a motion. Would you care to close?
Just very briefly, I especially want to thank the committee, your staff for the work on this. They've been very helpful, as have all the stakeholders. And we do see this as a first step, and from the breadth of testimony today from environmental community to solar manufacturers, I think this is an important first step. Would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Staff is going to be grateful that I didn't ask you about the toxicity characteristics, leaching procedures, total threshold leaching concentrations, and the soluble threshold leaching concentrations analytical testing.
Would you like me to respond to that? We're trying to prevent that.
Assistant, please call the roll.
Item 13, SB 489 by Senator Manning. The motion is due pass and refer to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wajkowski.
Aye.
Wajkowski, aye. Gaines. Aye. Gaines, aye. Bates. Aye. Bates, aye. Hill. Jackson. Aye. Jackson, aye. Leno. Aye. Leno, aye. Pavley. 5-0.
Currently is 5-0. We'll keep it open for the absent members.